How many people around you are lying, and you don't even know it? That's the terrifying part. It's not the lie that destroys you. It's the illusion that someone was ever telling the truth. You think you're building trust, building connection, building something real, but behind the smile is a blade. People lie for advantage. They lie to survive, to manipulate, to climb higher while stepping on your back. And the worst part? They do it without guilt, because in their mind you are never more than a tool. This is the silent war most never see. A war fought in boardrooms, relationships, families, and so-called friendships. And if you don't learn how to identify the enemy, you'll keep letting them in. Keep handing them weapons. Keep bleeding. You'll keep wondering why people switch up, disappear, betray, or use you. You'll keep blaming yourself. But the truth is, it's not your fault. You were never taught to see deception. You were taught to believe that everyone is like you, honest, loyal, fair. That's the biggest mistake. You need a new set of eyes, eyes that see past the surface. Eyes that don't just listen, but read, because when you know what to look for, lies aren't invisible anymore. They're loud, obvious, weak. That's the power you're about to learn. Not guesswork, not paranoia, precision, cold, calm, psychological clarity. The same kind of clarity Machiavelli used to outmaneuver kings, enemies, and traitors without ever lifting a sword. People think deception is complicated. It's not. It's patterned, predictable, repetitive. A liar's mind follows a rhythm, myth. And once you know the beat, you'll hear it every time they speak. You'll see it in their eyes, in their tone, in their timing, in the little cracks they try to cover up. And they won't even know you're watching. That's what gives you the advantage. You'll stop reacting and start controlling. Because the moment you can detect lies is the moment you take back your power. Imagine no longer second-guessing people's intentions, no longer wasting time on fake loyalty, empty promises, or carefully crafted manipulation. Imagine looking at someone and knowing instantly if they're real or just another mask. That kind of insight is rare, but it's not impossible. It's not even hard. You just need the right tactics. And Machiavelli gave them to you, 7 to be exact. 7 brutally effective strategies that make liars unravel in real time. And when you understand them, it's like turning on the lights in a dark room. Suddenly, everything makes sense. Stay with this to the end, and you won't just protect yourself, you'll gain a power most people never even realize exists. The power to walk through a world full of deception and never be fooled again. That's more than safety. That's freedom. Because once you can see through the lie, no one can control you. No one can use you. No one can blind you. And that's when you become untouchable. Not cold, not paranoid, just unshakably aware. And that awareness changes everything. Most people are easy to fool because they want to believe what's convenient. They crave peace, not truth. They'll overlook inconsistencies just to keep the illusion alive. But you're not most people. You've decided to become sharper, more aware, impossible to deceive. And it begins with the first tactic, exposing contradiction under pressure. Because when someone lies, they can rehearse the story, but they can't rehearse your questions. They can't prepare for the unexpected. Pressure is the enemy of falsehood. It makes lies sweat. When you apply even a small dose of psychological stress, the liar begins to crack. Their story stumbles, their voice changes, their emotions shift. You'll notice it when the calm disappears, when they start reaching for words that once came easily. That's not a mistake. It's a symptom. The human brain isn't wired to lie under pressure without leakage. The cognitive load becomes too high. They're juggling timelines, emotions, cover stories, and it always shows. Your job is to watch closely. Ask simple questions that test their consistency, not to intimidate, but to observe. Ask for the same detail in 2 different ways. Watch their reaction, their delay, the flicker of uncertainty. Honesty stays the same no matter how it's examined. Truth doesn't break under pressure, it becomes clearer. But lies shatter, because a lie requires constant maintenance. It demands energy, memory, and emotional control. Most people don't have the discipline to keep it together when you quietly start pulling the thread. They panic, they backtrack, they rush, they blame. They'll even try to change the subject or suddenly get defensive. That's not coincidence, that's a reaction. And every reaction tells a story. Train your mind to stay calm, to listen deeper. When someone starts to fumble, don't rescue them. Let the silence expose the gap. Let the pause reveal the fear. The liar wants you to fill in the blanks so they can escape. Don't. Sit in the tension. That's where the truth lives. You're not there to attack, you're there to see. And when you see clearly, you don't need confrontation. You don't need proof. You already know. This isn't about creating conflict. It's about commanding clarity. It's about protecting your time, your energy, your future. Your future. Every time you let a lie slide, you pay for it later with confusion, regret, betrayal. But every time you identify it early, you take back control. You redirect your path. You save your energy for what actually matters. And that's a different kind of power. Silent, unshakable, strategic. You are training your perception to become bulletproof. You're learning to detect weakness not by speaking louder, but by thinking sharper. The liar will always fear the one who listens more than they speak. Because silence, when used with precision, is a weapon. One they can't defend against. One that exposes everything they worked to hide. You don't need a fight. You don't need to accuse. You only need to see and let the cracks reveal the truth. The eyes don't lie. They reveal what the mouth tries to hide. While words are crafted and controlled, the face reacts before the brain can filter. That's why liars fear eye contact or try too hard to fake it. But you can't imitate what's involuntary. When someone lies, their body protests. Their eyes dart or freeze, their blink rate shifts. The pupils may shrink or expand. The muscles around their mouth tighten. These signs are brief, but they are real. And once you train your mind to see them, you'll never unsee them again. You're not just listening anymore. You're scanning, you're decoding. Oh, because truth and lies look different in the human body. It's not about catching one twitch, it's about the mismatch. When someone's voice says one thing, but their body says another, trust the body. Always. The body can't lie for long. It leaks discomfort. It exposes fear. Even in the calmest face, the pressure leaves traces. Tight shoulders, swallowed breaths, nervous fidgeting. These aren't accidents. They are signals. Signals most people miss because they're too focused on words. But not you. You're evolving into someone who sees what others ignore. Liars overcompensate. They try to appear too calm, too confident, too certain. That's their mistake. Authentic people don't have to perform. Their face, tone, and rhythm stay consistent. But the liar? They rehearse emotion. They fake empathy, and it shows. The smile doesn't reach the eyes. The timing is off. There's hesitation where there should be flow. Pay attention to that hesitation. Pay attention to the flicker of guilt in the eyes. You only need a second to know. You just need to be present fully. No assumptions, no bias, just raw attention. This is how you gain an edge without saying a word. You sit still, observe deeply, and let their body do the talking. It's not confrontation, it's calibration. The liar speaks louder the harder they try to control themselves, but your strength is stillness. You're no longer emotionally blinded by charm, titles, or stories. You're watching for truth in its rawest form, unfiltered, unspoken. You're using the same eyes Machiavelli used, eyes that dissect rather than admire. Master this and you become someone others can't fool. You don't need drama. You don't need suspicion. You simply see. And when you see clearly, your life changes. You stop inviting chaos. You stop rewarding fake connections. You save your time, energy, and trust for those who earn it. That's what gives you power, discernment backed by precision. You won't question your gut anymore because your observation will confirm it. This is how you rise above deception. Not by shouting truth, but by recognizing the quiet signs of a lie. You become immune to manipulation. Because liars fear those who can read between the lines. You're becoming that person now. Someone who doesn't chase the truth, but exposes it effortlessly. One look and you already know. That's not intuition, that's trained clarity, and clarity, once gained, becomes unstoppable. Liars crave control. But nothing rattles them more than praise they didn't expect. Because when you flatter someone who's hiding something, they drop their guard, their ego wakes up. And in that moment of pride, their mask begins to loosen. They think they've won, that you've been fooled, that you admire them. So they relax and they talk more. They add details no one asked for. They explain things that never needed defending. And that's exactly what you want. A liar exposed by their own mouth. This is the art of psychological baiting. You're not confronting, you're not accusing, you're just handing them a mirror and letting them paint the lie bigger. Praise their honesty and watch how they react. A truthful person will nod, maybe deflect the compliment, but a liar will cling to it. They'll repeat it. They'll exaggerate their own virtues. They'll tell you how trustworthy they are, how much they value loyalty, how honest they've always been. But their words will feel hollow, forced, too perfect. That's your signal. Real integrity doesn't scream. Real integrity doesn't scream. It's quiet. It's consistent. It doesn't need validation. The psychology is simple. Liars want to be seen as good. That's the game. So when you hand them validation, they think they've won. Their defense is lower, but their performance goes into overdrive. They don't realize you're watching the cracks form. Their tone changes. Their body tenses. They try to hold the image together, but now it's slipping. Because the more they build the illusion, the more you see how fake it really is. You don't need to argue with deception. You just need to observe how it behaves when praised. The ego of the liar is fragile. It wants recognition, but it can't handle inspection. So when you shine a flattering light on them, they start to reveal things they were trying to hide. That's your opportunity. Not to attack, but to listen. Not to respond, but to remember. This tactic is silent power. You're making them feel comfortable while gathering the truth they thought they buried. This isn't manipulation. It's mastery. You're using the same tool they try to use against you, psychology, but you're doing it with purpose. With clarity. With a calm that makes you untouchable. Because the truth is, when you know how people fall into their own trap, you never need to build one. You let them build it themselves. One word at a time. This is what separates the blind from the aware. Most people wait until it's too late. They wait until the betrayal, the loss, the damage. But you're moving ahead of it. You're catching the lie before it grows teeth. Before it costs you your time, energy, or trust. That's real power, not loud, not violent, but precise. The liar exposes themselves. You just give them the space to do it. And when you learn to do that, you never chase truth again. You attract it, effortlessly. Because now you see everything. Silence is one kind of test, but forcing someone to choose is another, because liars live in the gray. They hide in neutrality. They speak without taking sides, not because they're wise, but because they're calculating. They don't want to commit. They don't want to expose their alliances, so they stay vague. They agree with everyone. They avoid conflict by blending in. But that safety is an illusion, and you have the power to rip it away. All it takes is one sharp question that splits the path in two and forces them to choose. This is where truth gets uncomfortable. You look them in the eye and ask where they stand. On a person, on a principle, on a decision. And suddenly, the smooth talker stumbles. The mask falters. Because when there's no room to hide, the liar shows their true shape. They deflect. They stall. They mirror your opinion instead of owning one. That's not diplomacy. That's fear. They're afraid of revealing who they're really with, who they protect when you're not around, who they serve when it's not your turn. A loyal person stands tall in discomfort. They may not agree with you, but they'll say it. That's integrity. That's clarity. That's someone who can be trusted. But the one who floats between sides, who says nothing of substance, who agrees with whatever is convenient, that's the one who will vanish when things go wrong. That's the one who won't defend you, who won't speak the truth when it matters. And that's the one you need to expose now, not later. This is how you stop being played. You stop assuming silence is wisdom. You stop giving the benefit of the doubt to people who avoid the fire but still enjoy the heat. You test them, not with anger but with directness, not with drama but with precision. Ask what they believe. Ask who they support. Ask what they'd do if you weren't in the room. Their reaction is the answer, not the words, the hesitation, the dance, the dodge. That's the tell. You don't need people who hide behind neutrality. You need people who will choose truth over comfort, loyalty over popularity, clarity over safety. And the only way to know who they are is to create moments where pretending is no longer an option. Moments where alignment is demanded, not avoided. That's where real character is revealed. This is about cutting through the fog, about refusing to walk beside people who won't walk behind you. You're not just listening anymore, you're leading. You're drawing the line that most are too afraid to draw. And in doing so, you're forcing masks to fall, not with anger, not with noise, but with clarity. And that clarity, that's what separates the deceived from the powerful. Because the one who makes others choose never gets chosen last. You're becoming that person. Relentless, unshakable, impossible to fool. Loyalty isn't proven in your presence. It's revealed in your absence. The ones who truly stand with you don't need you in the room to defend your name, protect your reputation, or honor your connection. But a liar, a pretender, an opportunist, they vanish the moment you're not useful. They speak differently when you're not around. They shift alliances when eyes aren't watching. That's why one of the most powerful ways to expose them is to step back, not out of weakness, but out of strategy. Pull away. Watch what happens. Distance is a magnifying glass. It enlarges truth and shrinks illusion. It shows you who checks in, who disappears, who speaks your name with honor, and who stains it with silence or betrayal. The ones who only show loyalty when they need something aren't allies. They're parasites. Their loyalty was never to you. It was to the benefit of being near you. And the moment the benefit disappears, so do they. But when you learn to create intentional distance, you no longer need to guess. You don't have to accuse. You just observe. Time will speak for you. Silence will reveal them. Oh, this is where emotional power is built. When you can detach without panic, when you can remove your presence without fear, you stop begging for truth and let it walk to you on its own. You're not punishing anyone. You're testing structure, testing loyalty, testing if the connection is real or built on convenience. And that test is sacred, because what stays in your absence is gold. What fades was never yours to trust. Most people are afraid to pull back. They fear what distance might uncover, but that fear keeps them blind. They stay attached to people who only wear masks. They confuse proximity with loyalty. But proximity means nothing. Some of the closest people to you might be the ones rooting for your downfall. You'll never know until you remove the light and see who still shines in the dark. The ones who speak truth behind your back. The ones who show respect when no one's watching. That's your tribe. That's your circle. You don't need hundreds. You don't need applause. You need proof. Not promises, not words, behavior. And behavior under absence is the most honest kind. It's raw. It's unedited. It's impossible to fake. So test it. Pull back. Be still. Watch who leans in, who checks in, who stays present when there's nothing to gain. Those people are rare. Keep them close. Everyone else, let them fall away. Let the silence sort the real from the fake. You're not just becoming more powerful. You're becoming more selective. You're no longer feeding what drains you. You're filtering out the weak links before they break under pressure. And that is how you protect your energy, your mission, and your mind, by trusting absence more than words, and by never fearing what it reveals. Because now you know truth doesn't chase, it endures. The fastest way to expose a liar is to agree with them. Not because you believe them, but because they don't expect it. They rehearse defenses, not celebration. So when you mirror their lie back to them, you throw them off balance. You feed their illusion and watch how far they're willing to carry it. That's when the cracks show. That's when the performance starts falling apart, because liars overextend. They think they've convinced you, so they build more words, more details, more inconsistency, and with every extra layer, the truth beneath grows more visible. Mirroring is not imitation, it's precision. It's giving the liar room to expose themselves. When you act like you accept their version of the story, they feel in control. But what they don't see is that control is now an illusion. You've taken it. Quietly, strategically, because you're not reacting, you're not challenging, you're just reflecting. Their own words, their own logic, their own emotional traps. And the more you reflect, the more obvious their contradiction becomes. This tactic works because liars need validation. They crave the feeling of being believed. So when they get it, their defenses lower. They feel untouchable. But in that pride, they get sloppy. They get bold. They start to contradict earlier statements. They try to sound convincing, but they lose track of their own fiction. And all you have to do is keep listening, keep mirroring, keep nodding, until the lie collapses under its own weight. The psychology behind this is ruthless. Because it's not loud, it's not aggressive, it's subtle, surgical. You're letting the liar dig the hole themselves. Every word they say, every detail they add is one more step toward exposure. You're not reacting emotionally, you're detached. Clear, calm. That's what gives you the advantage. They're emotionally invested in their lie. You're emotionally immune to it. People underestimate how powerful it is to stay in control of your energy. The liar feeds off reaction, off your confusion, your anger, your doubt. But when you give them nothing but agreement, they lose their script. They expect resistance, not silence, not validation. And in that void, they reveal more than they ever intended. This isn't about manipulation. It's about protection. You're not here to destroy anyone. You're here to defend your clarity, your time, your trust. You don't owe anyone confrontation. You owe yourself peace. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let the lie speak long enough to prove itself false. When you learn to mirror deception, you stop being the target. You become the test, the line between real and fake. And once you master that skill, liars will fear your silence more than your words because they'll feel it, your awareness, your focus, your power. And that power doesn't shout, it watches, it waits, it exposes everything without lifting a finger. The most devastating question is the one they never saw coming. Not because it's loud, not because it's direct, but because it reframes the entire game. Liars are always prepared to defend themselves. They come ready with justifications, fake sincerity, emotional stories. But what they can't handle is inversion, a question that doesn't accuse but flips the frame. Instead of asking, did you lie? Ask, why would someone lie in a situation like this? Instead of chasing the truth, you ask them to define it. And in doing so, you force them to confront what they were hoping to avoid. This tactic isn't about catching someone, it's about watching how they respond when the ground beneath their story shifts. Because when the frame changes, the prepared answers no longer work. Now they have to think. Now they have to improvise. And liars are terrible under improvisation. They stall, they laugh nervously, they reach for explanations that don't quite fit. You're no longer reacting to their narrative, you're controlling it. You've taken the center and now they're scrambling to adjust. Truth flows easily, lies stutter. Watch the difference. When someone's being honest, reframing the question doesn't shake them. It clarifies them. Their answers deepen, not fracture. Their tone stays even. But when someone is hiding, they reveal everything the moment they're asked to explain from outside their script. That's when they expose motive. That's when they start using abstract language, vague phrases, emotional manipulation. That's when you see it, what they were protecting, what they were afraid you'd ask, what they hoped you wouldn't notice. Reversal is a psychological weapon. It disarms without attack. It turns the liar's own structure against them. Because when you shift the spotlight away from their defense and onto the logic of the situation, they can no longer hide behind performance. They're forced to step into clarity. And clarity is where deception dies. Because it's unnatural. Because it can't exist under steady light. And you are that light. Focused, calm, relentless. You're no longer someone who reacts to lies. You're someone who dismantles them. Quietly, intelligently, completely. The liar was expecting doubt, anger, confrontation. Instead, you gave them something far more dangerous, control. You didn't fight. You led, and they followed you right into exposure. This is where your transformation becomes complete. You don't just see the mask. You remove it without touching it. You don't force the truth. You make it the only option. This is what Machiavellian perception looks like. Sharp, strategic, surgical. You're no longer afraid of who's lying because you know how to find them, how to test them, how to flip their world upside down with a single question. You are no longer the one being manipulated. You are the standard, the force, the final filter every lie must pass through and fail and fail. And once you live from that position of power, no one can deceive you again because now you know how to see everything. This is what it means to be untouchable. Not by building walls, but by mastering vision. By training your mind to notice what others ignore. By staying calm when others react. When you can expose liars without confrontation, when you can flip their words back at them without raising your voice, when you can destroy deception with clarity alone, you become a force no one can manipulate. Because now you're not just protected, you're predictive. You don't wait for betrayal. You see it forming, you feel it before it arrives, and when it does, you're already gone, already 10 steps ahead, already immune. This is power that doesn't need validation, it doesn't seek revenge, it doesn't chase proof, it simply knows. And in a world built on performance, that kind of knowing is dangerous, because it cannot be fooled, it cannot be seduced, it cannot be bought. That's what makes it rare, and that's why so few possess it. Most people want comfort more than truth, but not you. You chose something higher. You chose clarity. You chose control. You chose to stop living in the fog of false promises, fake friends, and carefully polished masks. And now you don't just see the lie. You study it. You understand it. You reverse it. Let others depend on instinct. You're building strategy. Let others be blinded by charm. You're dissecting patterns. Let others be distracted by emotion. You're focused on behavior, and behavior never lies. It always leaves clues, small, subtle, but precise. You've learned to read them all, not with fear, but with authority. Not with bitterness, but with wisdom. Because now you understand, deception only has power over those who can't recognize it. You've taken your power back. Not by becoming colder, but by becoming sharper. You don't fear being lied to anymore, because now you have the tools to expose it. Not through aggression, not through accusation, but through insight, through structure, through psychological control. The liar never expects that. They prepare for resistance, not mastery. They prepare for reaction, not reversal. But now when they enter your space, they're walking into a trap they built for themselves, and you just let it close, quietly. Inevitably, there's nothing louder than silence filled with awareness, nothing more intimidating than someone who doesn't flinch when faced with dishonesty. That's who you've become. And from this place, you don't just avoid being hurt, you reshape the environment around you. You demand truth without saying a word. You filter out weakness with your presence alone. You elevate your standards so high, only the real can survive. This is the final shift. You're not chasing truth anymore. You are truth. You move with it, live by it, command it. And when people lie in your presence now, they know, maybe not right away, but soon enough, they feel it. That silent realization that they've been seen. Not judged, just revealed. And that revelation is your power forever.